We got a refill. We got a little emotional break.
We needed a little bathroom break, a little drink refill after that trauma. And we're back and ready.
We're back. Okay, where was I?
He got his throat slit. His mom thought that he got his nose broken, so she didn't know anything was wrong.
Yeah. So once the team heard back that he was going to survive, they continued to play.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Cloutier.
Wait. What?
Yeah.
So they just
they took a long break.
Probably had a minty bee in the locker room about potentially seeing your teammate get
killed.
Yeah, murdered is not the right word. Potentially seeing your teammate die in front of you. And then they were like, okay, let's go play some hockey.
Oh, girl, it gets worse because...
Oh, my God. Meanwhile, fans are, passing out and throwing up,
having heart attacks. It was a whole thing. Jacques Cloutier, the backup goalie...
Hell no, I'm not going up there.
In a pool of his blood that was frozen to the ice.
We didn't scrape it off?
There's only so much that you can scrape off for that. So he ended up having a 6-inch gash in his neck, 1 millimeter away from his carotid.
Oh, I've had a patient that had that before.
Oh, God.
It was a suicide attempt, though.
He had over 300 stitches.
Yeah, it takes a lot.
So his sister was watching it.
Oh, no.
And she was watching it on the TV. She lived about 2 hours away. And she was at the hospital within 2 hours of the accident happening.
Yeah.
So she was watching it live, and she said, I will go down with this ship. It is insane.
Oh my
There was
gosh.
so much press there trying to get through when he was in the hospital, even after he had come to.
That's screwed up.
The hospital was like, can you please do a press conference so that they will chill out and go away and stop harassing people? And so
Why don't you just kick him out of the hospital?
He ended up having to have 2 press conferences. And in the second conference, everything that had happened really hit him.
Oh, no.
And he kind of had a full breakdown.
Oh, no.
And started crying and
Were they videoing it? Delete that footage right now.
Yeah. 2 days after the accident, when he had been released from the hospital, he actually did a walkthrough of the arena before everybody arrived for that game with the trainer that literally saved his life. Jimmy. Can I call you Jimmy?
Can I call you Jimmy?
He made an appearance at the game, had a standing ovation, and he said he hated it.
Yeah,
he said in the moment, he could feel the stitches in his neck. He was so consumed with it.
That's PTSD, babes.
He said, I'd have tried to come back. Oh, he's talking about his comeback. He did go back 10 days after the accident.
Ooh.
He goes, I'd have tried to come back anyways, but financially I knew I didn't have a choice.
Oh.
Yeah. And no one talked to me about any psychological effects. I didn't know the meaning of trauma back then, but I knew the meaning of being a total, and I sure as hell wasn't going to be one. A total wimp, I guess is what I would say.
Those are not, that scenario and the word wimp don't go in the same breath.
No.
Much less in the same conversation.
No. So he returned 10 days after the incident in a game versus the Nordics.
Oh, his old team.
He played the last 10 minutes of the game, and all of the Nordics guys that he was teammates with came and shook his hand afterwards and congratulated him on his return.
On living.
Yeah, on literally surviving. From that point on, he actually wore a high-collared turtleneck that was reinforced by Kevlar.
Yes.
And yeah, tracks.
I don't know why net guards aren't mandatory.
Bro. Also, one other thing that I've loved about this book is getting to hear his thought process of being a goalie, and he's like, yeah, you don't see the players, you see the puck. And the players are just obstacles.
Oh, I like that.
It was really cool to be inside
goalies
the mind.
Are so interesting.
They are.
I mean, they all are, but goalies are such a different breed.
Speaking of different breeds, Boston fans, those bitches, they faced them in the playoffs that year, and he was a goaltender at a game. Fans behind the net made throat-cutting gestures at him to remind him to die.
Bro. Fuck you guys.
Yeah.
I hope you got what was coming. What the hell?
Yeah.
What is wrong with people?
So much.
That is the type I'm like, that's not.
God, no.
Okay. You think that's appropriate? Great. Let's run this play. If that was your brother,
Exactly.
your son, your
Literally.
wife, would you be okay if complete strangers did that? If the answer is no, let's leave it at home. Let's actually leave ourselves at home.
Yeah.
Because what the fuck?
That's so
how do I
ridiculous.
need to teach basic empathy to humans?
It's insane.
Ooh.
So that's all chapter 14.
You're lucky it's 40 years too late.
That's all chapter 14.
Please don't play with my chapstick.
I'm sorry. I'm getting anxious because this is a lot. That's chapter 14. Chapter 15 is a tiny bit of a time jump. He's getting back into it. Into a groove of hockey, that is. He is not sleeping, though. Mainly due to the OCD that's undiagnosed still. And his anxiety. And so that's also affecting his play. He said if he is sleeping, he's having nightmares of the accident all over again.
That's PTSD. That's literally textbook PTSD.
That's literally PTSD.
Trust me, I made an A on that test.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this quote from this chapter. My dad taught me to fight, but my mom told me to be tough, or taught me how to be tough. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And that's what he kept telling himself while he was playing through a separate injury. What injury, you might ask?
What injury was he playing through?
A broken vertebrae.
Vertebrae.
Why did I say vertebra?
You can say it either way.
Vertebra.
Vertebra, what the heck?
A broken vertebrae. Yeah.
Just one?
Yeah.
Like
he
a
also
full
did
one, or was it like a transverse
like
process?
a full
or like what?
girl. I don't know.
Okay, that's fair.
He said a broken vertebrae. He had neck pain, and he figured it was from the accident.
Yeah.
And so he never went to see a doctor. But he talks about how like he literally couldn't turn his head while driving. He couldn't check his blind spot. So he would just like go for it, and then he finally saw the team doctor, and they were like, "Yeah, you got a broken vertebrae. You could have been paralyzed."
So that was one of the C'ers, one of the C1 through 5ers, if you will.
Sure.
It was.
Sure. Okay. So then he has surgery for that. He's out. Chapter 16, the heavy drinking comes into play. Yeah, it's the second summer after his accident. He actually went 2 weeks without sleep at one point. He started developing ulcers and vomiting blood. The team sent him to the hospital. He goes,
I get stress ulcers too, especially when I get insomnia from OCD.
You do. He says, I was confused and angry and desperate, but I refused to ask for help. I had no trouble talking to professionals when it came to physical pain, but emotional problems, hell no.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's really sad. He talks about his anxiety and how he had been married a second time at this point. He's still having anxiety. It can't possibly be hockey, so he puts it on his second wife again. Yeah, they got into a fight one night. Oh, I forgot about this. And he's on pain medicine for his broken vertebrae. Okay. I keep saying vertebra.
You can just say he broke part of his spine.
He's on pain medicines for his injury. And he knew that he couldn't drink and take the pain medicines because it would cause drowsiness. He hadn't slept in 2 weeks. So he drank a good bit of whiskey and took a handful of pills and collapsed. Yeah, his wife had been a flight attendant, and so she actually performed...
Oh, what a baddie.
So she performed CPR until the paramedics arrived.
Those jobs are so intense.
Yeah, he woke up in the hospital, and all the doctors were like, did you try to kill yourself? Like, was this a suicide attempt? They kept asking him over and over and over again.
Because it's giving suicide attempt.
It's giving suicide attempt. He genuinely did not understand the effects of what he was doing, which is really sad. He goes,
he was just desperate to get some sleep.
He goes, I had thought about suicide before, but I don't think I wanted to kill myself that night. Maybe I didn't care, though, if I did. I just wanted to sleep because I hadn't slept in so long.
Ooh, I've had so many patients tell me that.
Yeah. Now, that did get reported on in the news. But,
what the fuck?
But it got very much buried because Wayne Gretzky had decided to take part in the strike by the Players Association. And that was like...
Thank you.
Leading news. So this incident, while he's in this hospital, is actually when he gets diagnosed with OCD. Mm-hmm. He's talking to the psychiatrist and all of that, and the psychiatrist literally just says, you're going through some shit. Obviously. They talk it through. He's like, yeah, you've definitely got OCD. You've definitely got clinical depression. But he does say it was the first time that the chaos inside of me was given a label.
Oh.
Yeah. And that going back to the team was uncomfortable because they knew that he had they knew that he had basically overdosed and that it looked like a suicide attempt. But he was sticking by the story that he didn't know what was going on. He didn't understand. It was just like an uncomfortable situation for the team.
Yeah. If only we had taught people how to respond to this type of situations.
Yeah.
Also, but we still don't.
Also, at this time, he was still hiding the fact that he'd been diagnosed with OCD. He didn't want them to know.
Yeah, fair enough.
Oh, God. Read from page 108. Oh, he's talking about suicide being the easy way out. He says multiple times in this, like, I'm a cowboy. You fall off a horse. You just get back on and keep riding.
Yeah.
Which is true, but also kind of sad. He says, I'd spent my life battling mental illness without knowing it. I was screwed up without knowing how screwed up I really was. More than anything, I was confused by what I had done to myself. I hadn't made a conscious, drawn-out decision to commit suicide. I'd fought away those thoughts in the past and had never taken it this far. I certainly hadn't planned anything. But on the other hand, why would you take a handful of pills and drink a bottle of whiskey?
Yeah.
Why would I do that to myself? It was so confusing and hard to explain. Anyone who has been clinically depressed, not just blue or sad, will understand what I'm trying to say. It's just sad. It's just
so sad.
Yeah. He did ultimately end up publicly acknowledging that he had been diagnosed OCD. What it really came down to was he had built up a good image, I guess, working with the community. He had visited a bunch of kids in hospitals because he had been a kid in a hospital, and he didn't want kids to look at him and think that's how you fix your problems. He wanted to set a good example for them, and so he was like, yeah, I have OCD. I'm not an alcoholic. I really don't drink, which he really didn't drink a whole lot at that point, not during the season. Summers were a different story.
Summers are always a different story.
He just didn't want them to think that he did drugs or drank a lot.
Yeah.
So he was like, yeah, I have OCD. He was reallocated to the AHL for a bit, probably just to work through.
He needed a break.
And when he came back.
But he also needed to be able to pay his bills.
Yeah.
I get it. It sucks.
Yeah. When he came back, he had a lot of players tormenting him and saying things like, oh, you need a pill to make you feel happy.
Sometimes
which
we
just
do.
pisses me off.
Okay.
In that first game.
You need a pill to make you be an empathetic human being, you piece of shit.
Yeah, that was all in the first game that they were taunting him like that.
Bro, I would
and so
rock their world.
They were winning the game. It was working towards a shutout. So he kind of said, fuck it. He said literally, fuck it. You don't know what I've been through. Took his mitts off and started fighting everybody.
Yes.
Yeah. The end of the chapter, he goes, I got a shutout, was the game's first star, and started a line brawl in my return. I was pretty proud of that game.
Period.
Now, that was a great game, but at the end of the chapter, he's still very much struggling. He's very much in his head. He didn't do well preseason, so he got put on waivers, and nobody picked him up. And their head coach actually gave him the option between going and playing for the Olympic team or going to the IHL. He didn't want to go to Europe, which is what he would have had to do with the Olympic team. So he went to the IHL. He says for the first time.
Sweet of the coach to give him a choice.
Yeah.
Like, he's just crashing out.
Well, he didn't want to go to the Olympic team, too, because his daughter was in the States, either in America or in Canada. On the North American continent.
Yeah.
And so he wouldn't get to see her. And he goes, for the first time in my life, hockey wasn't the most important thing. My problems did consume me.
Yeah.
But he moved to California.
Okay.
Chapter 17. I promise they get quicker. I promise. We're like 2 hours in.
Where does the happiness start?
When Joni comes in, really.
Okay. Can't wait to see you, Joni.
Yeah. There's a lot in chapter 17 of like, I'm on my medication, I'm doing the right things, I'm seeing doctors, like, why am I not doing better? His second wife is pregnant at this point. They're not divorced, but their marriage is doomed, as he said.
I mean, there's no way he could be a good husband. He's struggling so much to be a person.
Yeah. He gets called up to the Sabres for a bit. Sits on the bench the whole time.
That's fine.
And then gets sent back to San Diego. On the car ride to the airport, he kind of has a little minty bee with
warranted.
Yeah, with his friend Chris. Cried the whole way to the airport and then literally asked God to take him.
Oh my
He said,
God.
I didn't even have the balls to do it myself. But feeling the way I felt, I didn't want to live. It's just so sad.
God, this is so sad.
Yeah, when he got home, his wife had packed up and left.
Oh my God.
Didn't call, didn't answer calls. They had a pretty messy divorce. But here's where things start getting happier.
Okay.
He gets pulled in a game. Not this part. He gets pulled in a game after allowing 4 goals on 5 shots. He goes to their head coach, Rick Dudley's office, which Rick Dudley, the man you are, because he is also a big
presence in his life.
Yes. Like, throughout the rest of this book, this man is a great presence. They had played together in juniors.
I love a Rick Tockett, whatever this guy's name is.
So Rick Dudley was head coach. He goes to his office after the game, has a little minty bee, tells him like where he's at mentally, and is just like, I'm done. I know you brought me here to give me another chance, but I'm just getting worse. Rick says like, I don't care about hockey. We're going to get you some help. And promised that the organization would stand behind him while he got the help he needed.
Period.
They get a doctor to come in and like see him and everything. He was on Haldol, Haldol.
What is? I know what Haldol is. Did you just spell it for me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it.
It's an antipsychotic.
Well, his doctor's essentially like, what? Why are you on that? You should not be on that.
You need to be on that.
Yeah, so they put him on Zoloft instead.
Zoloft will help with generalized anxiety disorder and depression.
So they put him on Zoloft instead, and he says that that's the first doctor that didn't ask him about his childhood. And he was like, you're not going to ask me about how my dad screwed me up. And he goes, Clint, your problem is a chemical imbalance, and we're going to get you on the right medication to fix that. Like, I don't necessarily care about your childhood. We're going to focus on you.
Yeah.
Which was sweet.
We're going to fix the man you are.
Yeah, he gets on Zoloft. He says it took 9 weeks to finally understand, but he was like happy again. He goes,
it takes a long time to kick in.
Yeah, he says it took 9 weeks to finally understand that maybe for the first time ever, this is what normal feels like. And about how that was the first time in his life that he really hadn't felt depressed.
Shit.
Right?
We had different experiences with meds.
Yeah. Yeah. So chapter 18, the IHL team that he was playing for became an affiliate of Anaheim. So they wanted to really make that a feeder team to them. So he was gone. He was done with that. He went to Vegas to play for the IHL team there. Shout out Vegas.
Shout out Vegas.
He had started drinking very heavily again.
Not
there.
Shout out alcohol.
No, not shout out alcohol. He was going through a divorce. His second wife wasn't allowing him to see his son.
I can understand where she's coming from.
Yeah, full-blown alcoholic. When he was moving to Vegas, he bought a bottle of whiskey as he crossed into Montana, and the next thing he remembers was seeing the lights of Vegas and waking up at a rest stop. So we're not doing great. Now,
you're not supposed to drink on Zoloft. You're not supposed to drink on any SSRI or really any drug of that sort.
No. Now, he actually was sitting in a hotel because he didn't have an apartment or a home or anything at this time. And he calls AA from his hotel room and essentially is like, hey, dude, I think I need help. And they say, someone will come grab you. There's actually someone else in this hotel that just called. We'll pick you both up.
Oh, wow.
And we'll go to this meeting together.
Okay.
And he goes to this AA meeting. He refuses to acknowledge that he's an alcoholic. And there's a lot of
babes, but he's acknowledging that he needs help. And that's the first step.
Truly.
And that's such a big deal for him who does not want to talk about his feelings.
Yeah. And he's like, I couldn't admit that I'm an alcoholic.
That's a hard thing to admit, I assume.
Yeah. He goes, thinking about whether I wanted to admit to another failure in my, like, he couldn't admit to another failure. He goes, then I thought of my dad. There was really no choice. I went back the next night. He just, like, didn't want to be as bad as his dad. And he didn't drink again for another 8 years.
You know what? Hell yeah.
Yeah. He's getting interest from more teams, including the Boston Bruins are wanting him back. And he kind of has an internal battle of, I want to go back. Obviously, I play in the minors. The goal is to always play in the NHL, but I don't know if I can. Like, I'm finally on the right track here. He sits down with his coach and general manager, tells them that, and they say, okay, bet, like, we will take care of you. They will match the deal that the Bruins offered him.
What?
Which is insane. I think they settled on $130,000, which at the time most IHL players were making like $80,000.
That's so much money.
Yeah.
You're worth
They
it
said,
all, Clint.
yeah.
You're worth the world.
And they set him up with a deal that he would play another 1 or 2 seasons and then transition into an assistant coach or management role.
Yes.
So it also included a signing bonus. He asked for the signing bonus to be paid out in horses because he wanted to buy a ranch and really make a life for himself in Vegas.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he did.
Stop.
Also, Manon Rheaume. You probably don't remember because this was a while ago. She was the first female player to ever play in an NHL exhibition game.
Yeah.
She played for this team for 2 games, 52 minutes, and packed out the arena.
Yeah,
there was just a her mention. So I was like,
women in hockey.
He also meets his third wife.
Okay.
Here.
What's her name?
At the end of the chapter. He didn't share any of the wives' names other than his last one that he's still married to now.
So it's not Joni or whatever her name is?
No. They did get married and stayed married for 7 years, and they had a very amicable divorce, and, like, we're still good friends.
Okay, slay.
So they were good.
Slay, slay, slay.
He goes, we lasted 7 years, a record.
Clint, you didn't have to joke about that.
Chapter 20, he's retired. He retired at the end of the 94-95 season.
So he never did go back to the NHL? Mm-mm. Yeah, that feels like a great call for him.
Yeah. He took on an assistant coach and assistant general manager role here. Loved it. Mm-hmm. And his main priority, he always said, like, I'll never sacrifice my relationship with the players. Because, like, I've worked for years to build these relationships with them. So I'm always going to be blunt and honest with them.
I got to put my players first.
Absolutely. And in March of 1996, they actually asked him to suit up for one more game.
Stop.
He played the last 5 minutes of the first period, and immediately after, they retired his jersey during the first intermission.
Stop. Finally some joy.
I know.
Oh my God. Happiness.
It's so sweet. He spent some time there. They sent him a contract renewal.
Hell yeah.
It was for $35,000.
No way.
Which was... The lowest coaches at this time were like $80,000. So he was insulted.
Yeah, you should be.
They came back with 70, and he said, you know what? I'm actually going to move to Idaho.
He said, I care about these players, but I got to pay these bills.
Yeah, so he moved to Idaho. Him and his wife bought a ranch there. He worked for an IHL team there, doing basically the same thing. And fast forward to 2001. His contract was up with the Idaho team.
Even the lights depressed, it died.
Oh, that'll be fine. The end of the 2001 season, his contract was up. He waited to hear back if they would re-sign him or not. He didn't hear back until August.
What are they, the Maple Leaves?
Right? And then at that point, he had already decided he would go to equestrian dental school because he had all these horses and he worked with a lot of horses. So he was like, it might as well, like, it might be good to know about their teeth.
Chomp,
and
chomp.
so he was basically like, nah, man, I'm going to school.
That's a crazy career change.
And he created a horse dental business that would travel around while also working as a player and goalie consultant for other hockey teams.
Heck yeah, Clint.
So he would fly to all of these different places to work with goalies.
I love it so much. No, I just got to feel joy.
I know. No. Hold on to that. So he goes to British Columbia for a consulting job.
Yeah.
He's out at a bar with some other coaches. He's drinking Coke.
Okay.
He goes to the bathroom and he comes back and he picks up what he thinks is his drink, and it's actually someone else's Crown and Coke.
No. Mm-mm.
And he was like, I mean, I've been fine for 8 years. No. I guess I'm fine.
Nope.
Yeah. No. Yeah, addiction's up and running again.
Oh,
and
no,
because of that, you're not supposed to drink on antipsychotics.
You're super heavy not.
His OCD is pretty bad again. His depression's pretty bad. And on page 139, he actually says it's a progressive problem. It's a disease that festers and builds.
Yeah.
And then ends the chapter with, he says, the haunting had faded, but it was always going to come back stronger. I can see them clearly now. Obsession, depression, booze, but it didn't matter. The demons were circling back, and this time they wanted all of me.
Oh my God, what a line.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm the type of toxic that when I read a book, I'm like, I can fix him.
Yeah.
Never back down, never what, never give up.
Yeah. Similar to chapter 21, Rick Dudley.
Rick, come get your man again.
He does. He's now the general manager for the Florida Panthers at this time.
You know what? Hell yeah, Rick.
He calls Clint and says, like, oh,
your vibes are off. Come work for me.
I can feel it from here. He says, do you want to apply for this vacant role of a goalie coach?
Because I already applied for you.
Yeah. He made it seem... He got the job on the spot, essentially. He travels back and forth from Florida and Idaho, doing both jobs.
That's a long distance job.
Yeah, this was also back when the Panthers were not very good.
Brad Marchand in a Florida Panthers jersey
wrong.
Feels illegal. I absolutely hate it.
It is wrong.
And that's all I'm going to say about it.
Yeah.
Despise.
He talks about the kind of coach that he always wanted to be, and how most goalie coaches were focused on the technical stuff when they really should have been focused on the psychological side of it all.
Period.
He said they have an extreme amount of pressure on themselves, whereas, like, you can't completely overhaul the goalie's playing abilities, so you really need to focus on the mental aspect of it.
Yes.
And that's really what he wanted to. Even back then when he didn't
even know that.
He didn't even fix his own mental, but he was focused on theirs.
Let's not make it about myself. Let's make it about you.
Yeah. It also seemed like his drinking was kind of back down to a minimum at this time, but I don't know. So, chapter 22, he's married again, and they also have a baby together.
Wife number 4 or what?
Third marriage.
Still third?
Yeah, still third. They're married. They have a baby together.
Okay.
They do end up divorced.
How many
just kind of
kids
tapers
does he
off.
have at this point?
He's got 3 kids.
One with each?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. They're divorced, actually, come to think of it. We get a picture. They're married at the beginning. About halfway through, they're divorced.
Fair enough.
And then in 2004, he meets Joni Goodley.
Thank God, Joni.
Yes.
Oh, where have you been,
and
honey?
He
I've
says,
been in the trenches.
I had the chance to find out what head over heels, knock you on your ass love actually feels like.
I hope I get that chance one day.
Yeah, he was working with Florida's AHL team.
Yeah.
And Joni was a skating director and figure skating coach at the arena that they both played in.
Love it. We love to see it.
He says, she brought out the best in me. I was kind, caring, and thoughtful. She became
the bare minimum.
Yeah, she became my best friend, and 6 months later they were engaged.
Good God.
Yeah, he falls in love quick.
Yeah, he does.
Meanwhile,
he looks for what he hasn't gotten.
Meanwhile,
but he doesn't know how to sustain it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
he had not been seeing a doctor. He hadn't seen a doctor in a long time.
Dude.
He thought that he was cured.
It's not a cure. It's a management.
And so he had stopped taking his medication as frequently as he should have.
Oh my God. Clint.
Including in a trip to Toronto shortly after him and Joni had gotten together, where his luggage was actually lost. And he went 4 days without his medication. He had a panic attack, spiraled about missing his flight to the point that he actually couldn't physically leave his hotel room, and ended up actually missing his flight, even though he had been up all night. Joni called him. It was like, hey, are you okay? And he was like, I literally can't. And so she called the hotel staff and was like, hey, this guy's coming down to the lobby. Call him a car to the airport and make sure he gets in it. She rebooked a flight.
Queen.
She literally got him home.
Queen, an absolute queen.
When he got home, she took him to the hospital to get his medication adjusted.
Yes.
Because he also had been taking the same dosage. Like, his dosage never changed.
Okay.
But I don't know. They had now. They live on the ranch that they bought. They've actually moved to Nevada at this point.
Nevada?
Nevada?
Okay.
Nevada? Is that how you say that?
That's how I say it.
That's weird.
You're weird.
I'm weird. I'm not like everybody else.
Have you ever seen me without this stupid hat?
I'm not like everyone else, and I don't want to be.
I don't fit in. I don't want to fit in.
in.
God, Riverdale was such a crazy show.
Yeah. So he also, oh my gosh, it's so sad. At the end of the chapter, he says that Joni definitely saw him slipping, but just didn't know how bad it really was. And then we talked about this in the Buffalo episode too, but February 10th, 2008, Richard Zednick had his neck cut open by the skate blade of a teammate.
Ooh.
It was extremely similar to Clint's accident.
Yeah. Didn't it set off his PTSD?
Yeah. Reporters were reaching out to him nonstop.
Fuck, y'all.
Because it was so similar, which kind of forced him to replay it over and over and over again. He says, the nightmares came back. It just kept getting worse. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't want anyone else to know. I didn't want to put a big spotlight on it and expose everything all over again. I felt ashamed at having gone back to that place and being unable to overcome myself.
Oh, Lubby.
Yeah. The next chapter, he's working for the Columbus Blue Jackets. He's still very much with his ranch, but his drinking had reached a point where people couldn't even see the OCD because drinking appeared to be his most obvious problem. Now, Joni was still in Nevada, whatever it is. And so when he was home, again, he said it once before, he would pick fights with his wife because he didn't know what to blame the anxiety on. And so he just blamed it on them.
God, that's
and
so
he would
sad.
argue. She had been with a bodybuilder before him who was very abusive towards her.
Absolutely not.
And they had talked about that early on in their relationship. But he was always like, am I too small? Like, am I too skinny because you were with a bodybuilder? Or are you going to leave me for another body? Like, that was his main thing.
Insecurity?
Yeah. For sure.
That's not a me problem. That's a you problem. You fix it.
Yeah, and in chapter 25 he's completely suicidal at this point.
Oh, my God.
And he's told Joni as well.
Pass me your drink if you're not going to drink it.
He's told Joni at this point, too. He even tells her at one point that he would rig a gun to a door so that when she walked in, it would shoot him. Which is
oh my God,
terrible. He says, when things got really bad, I became emotionally and verbally violent with Joni. I was never physical, and I would never hit her, but my rage-filled words certainly left unseen bruises.
Oh, it hits.
Yeah.
It last.
I became irrational over the smallest things and completely erratic. The only predictable thing about me was that I was probably drunk. Next chapter opens with him sitting on the side of the road with a gun in his mouth. He ends up calling Rick Dudley, because he was just like, I just want to say goodbye. And Rick's like, no. Wait, I'm getting on a plane.
Oh, God.
You better be there when I arrive. First of all, Rick Dudley hated flying and drove everywhere, but he got on a plane to meet him. And they went to the doctor together because Joni had been calling every doctor to find one that could see him.
Yeah.
Because it was like, oh, we'll see you in a year. Which is insane.
It is like that.
Yeah. Anyways, they go to a doctor, all three of them together. He gets in his head, and so he's like...
Just him and his entourage.
So he's like, I'm going to take a phone call. Runs out of the hospital.
I'm sorry, but that's kind of relatable.
Runs out of there. He's like, I can't do this. They start calling a bunch of bars. He's bar hopping. They end up finding him at a bar as he's actively getting kicked out of it. At the same time that the cops arrive at that bar, they try to arrest him. He resists. It escalates to the point of one of the cops having to pull a gun on him. He's basically like, do it, you won't. He ends up...
people who trying to cop-assisted suicide, fuck y'all.
He gets arrested. He spends the night in jail. They're tormenting him a lot, which is sad. He ended up not getting big charges pushed against him because they basically stood there and tormented him the whole night. The cops take him to the hospital in the back of a cop car the next day to get with a doctor, because it's like, you actually have to see this doctor. Clearly something's wrong with you. And the cop recognized him and was like, I'll get you out of this. And Clint says that it was nice, but that he also knows that that just wasn't right. Yeah. Because he had done things that deserved charges to be pressed against him.
Yeah.
And he was admitted to a state mental facility. Once he got out, Rick Dudley actually told Joni to get on a plane if Clint ever got aggressive with her. Facts. It was like, come to me, literally.
Rick Dudley is such a king.
Yeah. They, fast forward, they got in a massive fight. Joni actually left for the night. And this is where we're picking up where the prologue was.
Oh my God.
She gets back home around 2:30 in the afternoon to find his phone's turned off in the kitchen. He hadn't stopped drinking all night. And he was outside hunting for rabbits with a gun sitting next to him. She asks him essentially, like, what are we going to do about this? Like, your drinking and your mental illness, clearly, like, you need help. And he takes it as, I should just kill myself. Oh. And so he says, I can't live inside my head anymore, picks up the gun and shoots himself in the chin. Like, up towards his head.
That's not an effective way to do it. I've seen it fail so many times.
Yeah, this one failed too. Chapter 27, he's coming to, still on the ranch after he just shot himself. He's fully conscious. Joni is screaming, and he literally says, see what you made me do?
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Are you joking? Look what you made me do? First of all,
yeah.
No. I'm absolutely not.
All caps, shut the fuck up. You've pissed me off.
Absolutely like, not.
It's really hard because...
How dare you blame her for that?
Yeah.
How dare you?
And, like, it's so hard because I know that he is not mentally stable.
No.
Like, there's nothing mentally stable about this man at this point in time. But it's still so hurtful.
Dude, she's a better woman than me.
Yeah. He actually stands up and walks to the barn, grabs a towel, and starts wiping the blood off of his chin. Meanwhile, she's on the phone with 911. And he's like, it's fine, it's fine.
It's not fine.
Don't call the cops. I can fix it. I can stitch myself back up. And then he goes, I just didn't want the world to see me bleeding out again. Which is so sad. The cops show up, guns drawn, thinking that Joni shot him. So, like, what? That's a whole ordeal. He's, like, bleeding out, like, go away, mind your own business to the cops. And Joni's, like, in front of him, like, don't shoot him. And they're like, did you shoot him? It's a whole ordeal. He finally gets in an ambulance and is going to the hospital and then is airlifted to another hospital, which his third wife, who lived nearby, actually met him at. Oh, I think Joni actually called her and asked because they had remained very close.
Dude, I hope they have like a monthly book club to talk about their Clint trauma because holy shit, he puts them through a ringer.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Joni's at the house getting interrogated by the police. As he's leaving, he was yelling at her, like, don't tell them the truth. Like, tell them it was a hunting accident. And so she does. She said it was a hunting accident.
I'd be like, bitch, here's the 411. He shot himself in the face and then told me, look what you made me do.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
How dare you misquote Taylor Swift?
That is not Taylor's version. That's Clint's version.
That's Clint's version.
Look what you made me do.
Yeah. When she's finally able to drive to the hospital, she doesn't know if he's dead or alive.
Oh my God.
The next chapter opens up.
Where's his mom?
She's on the way.
Oh. En route.
En route. ETA is a couple days.
Okay.
Chapter 28 opens. The bullet actually went up through his chin, knocked out a bunch of his teeth.
Did it blow his jaw out?
I don't think it did, but it like knocked out a bunch of his teeth, went through his tongue, up the roof of his mouth, and got lodged near his left eye.
Yeah.
Removing it was too risky, so they performed surgery to fix the damages, but he still has that bullet in his eye, or in his face, to this day. He was almost paralyzed on the right side of his face when he woke up. That eventually went away. The right side fully goes to my left side. Oh, it comes out during that whole thing. That state institution that he went to when he was arrested by the cops in the bar, gave him a mixture of medications that was just so unsafe, like so not okay. I don't know, it didn't say specifically, but all of the doctors were like, those drugs should have never been mixed together, and that was definitely a contributing factor to the psychotic break, along with all of his other problems.
To be fair, we still don't know a lot about the meds we prescribe.
Yeah,
we know more now, but I mean, yeah, we're just kind of like, hope it works.
Yeah. Joni got a call. He was unconscious for a period of time so the swelling could go down. Yeah. Joni gets a call that the police report is ready, and that they're basically like, hey, look, we know this wasn't a hunting accident. If you stick to that story, we're gonna as soon as he wakes up, like, he can leave. But if you say, hey, this was a suicide attempt, if you tell he us the has truth, to get help. Yes. And he actually has to get help. And so she changed the story to be the truth, so that he would be forced to get help. Yeah.
She's such a queen.
And he says, with that decision, Joni brought me back to life.
Honestly, fuck you, Clint.
Honestly, dude.
Honestly, we're not on good terms.
So Garth actually got in touch with the Players Association.
Garth, where have you been?
He's been doing his...
I say that as an older sibling who had to realize my siblings were also grown and capable of making their own decisions, and that I didn't get to control them anymore. Yeah. You know what? Live your life.
So Garth got in touch with the NHL Players Association.
Oh, God.
Even though he technically wasn't in the NHL anymore. They told Joni that he would have to go to rehab, but that they would take care of everything. Like medical... Because he didn't get help when the initial accident happened. When the skate blade accident happened,
they didn't offer him help.
No, he refused all help.
Just kidding. I forgot he said emotions. Absolutely not.
He said, I'm actually perfectly fine. I don't need help.
He said, next game is when?
I'll be back in 2 days.
He said, just scrub the blood a little bit harder.
Yeah, just get rid of the blood. It'll be fine.
It's like the blood of Christ. It just wipes right off.
So they took care of everything. His medical bills, the rehab bills, most of their like housing bills as well, because he wasn't able to work. And they said, we'll take care of it for however long it takes.
Pop off.
Players Association.
Dude, I've actually never said a bad word about you.
Yeah.
Never. That's my association right there.
And she told Clint, if you don't go to rehab, we're done.
She's put up with way more than anyone should.
Oh my gosh. So the NHL Players Association had a driver pick him up from the hospital and take him to rehab.
Hell yeah.
On the drive to the rehab, the player that picked him up was a Canadian football player that had been at the first AA meeting that he had gone to in Regina in Vegas.
Were they in the hotel together?
No, but he was another player that was there. And I was like, wow, the hockey gods.
We love to see it.
Yeah.
We love to see it.
Chapter 29 through 31.
Thank you to that player.
Yeah, truly. Chapters 29 through 31, he's in rehab. It was extremely hard to read. Like, it was brutal. The way he treated Joni was horrible. Joni's also going to, like, a families of people with that kind of... The facility has a group for the families of those people that she's going to, and that's really helping her. It is so hard to read. I don't have any notes other than on page 215, we get an entry from Joni's journal. It's just sad. It's talking about, like... They come for like a family weekend, and he screams in her face and is like, you did this to me, you bitch. Like, it is so hard to read. And then that's like her entry, I think, after he shoots himself. I don't have another note until chapter 32. He's still in rehab. And was it Tina? What's her name? Tina, one of his nurses in rehab that he literally is so mean to for the first like 4 chapters of rehab, finally tells him, hey, I think you've got PTSD from the skate blade accident that you never processed. And I think that is what has damaged you to this point.
That's like your origin story.
Yeah. And he thought it was BS because he was like, I never went to war. It's not like I fought in Vietnam.
Oh, the misinformation is crazy.
And she gives him like an article about PTSD. Yeah. Beyond just that. Anyways, she also said, before I read you part of that, Tina thought that the Players Association really wanted to help him because he never received the help at the time of the Buffalo accident, and that they kind of knew that had to have more effects on him.
Yeah.
And that's why they were so open to be like, we will take care of everything.
Which is such a slay. I can't even begin to say.
There's a great analogy in this chapter about fight or flight. It talks about animals, so I didn't want to share it. It talks about like nature taking its course.
Nope, I don't like that.
But he goes, the lasting effects of trauma are the result of the negative moment being trapped inside of us, frozen and without resolution. It destroys us from the inside out.
Yeah.
And then later on, I'll say this one part of that analogy that doesn't talk about death, for real, of the animal. On the outside, the impala looked dead and gone, but on the inside, its nervous system was still spinning at 70 miles an hour. It's like slamming on the gas and the brake pedals in your car at the same time. All that energy has to go somewhere, and as a human, we aren't very effective at getting rid of it.
Yeah.
And he talks so much about it. It's such a good analogy for it. And he ends up saying, like, 2 decades of unaddressed trauma poured out of me in 3 days. He literally, like, was just crying for about 3 days straight. He said, I think I scared Tina with how deeply messed up I really was.
Do be like that.
Yeah. And about 6 months after he went to rehab, he gets to leave. Chapter 33, he's in regular AA meetings. He's going to church because he had gone to church as a kid but didn't start going. And he was like,
piece of shit dad.
Yeah, he was like, I just kind of need to be around people that have some faith in something.
I need to see the people of faith.
Yeah. And he started trying to fix his marriage and undo all the damage that he had inflicted on Joni. They actually seem to work out everything really well.
How?
And he's no longer working in hockey.
Fair.
Yeah. Chapter 34. This is the second to last chapter. He gets an opportunity to work in upstate New York with some horses of well-known individuals. And then it says Martha Stewart, Calvin Klein.
Sure. Okay.
Where he is connected with a Florida doctor who hooked him up with some work in Florida on some horses. In that trip to Florida, some Ottawa Senators staff were there for recruiting.
Okay.
They connected. The Senators were looking for a goalie coach. They seemed eager to work with him. He met some people, and then they never called him. And
sounds like Ottawa.
Girl, yeah. He talks about the anxiety of waiting for that, like, kind of brought him to drink.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I think I've seen this film before.
Where it started,
I like the ending.
Where it started was he went to an AA meeting.
Yeah.
He told Joni he was going out for coffee with some people afterwards.
Okay.
And actually went out for a drink. Joni called him 2 hours later and said, "Where the frick are you?" And he was like, "I'm on my way home." He gets pulled over after leaving the bar.
Good.
His blood alcohol level was double the legal limit. And
so
he's
0.16.
Sure. And he spent the night in jail. And
As he should.
He said he cried the whole night. Turns out the Senators were going to hire him, but then his arrest was in the press, and they said, never mind. But he needed a job because they needed to pay bills. Rick Dudley,
Dear God.
the associate general manager of the Atlanta Thrashers at this point.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
They hired him as a goalie coach in 2010, and then in 2011, the Thrashers moved to Winnipeg. He asked for permission to speak to other teams instead and got a job back in Alberta, his home Providence, with the Calgary Flames.
Fine.
Yeah. The last chapter, he was working in Calgary. He started sharing his stories at high schools, and he says that was like a real purpose moment for him because he had all these kids coming up to him after talking about their own struggles and like depression, anxiety, and he was just like, find help, like literally find help. And he seems on a good path. We talked about this in our rookies episode about John Tortorella trying to fight that coach in a different locker room. He was there.
John Tortorella.
He actually recalls that moment, and he was kind of like, I could knock John Tortorella out.
Him and Brett were both there, and I think from the interview I saw about Brett was also like, I could I could clock him.
I could do it.
I could drop him easy.
Yeah.
He had like a hand on torts.
Yeah, and we get to hear about his thought process writing this book and how he made such a point to talk to his kids and be like, are you depressed? Do you know what that actually means?
Oh,
like,
love.
And be very open with them about the mental health of it all, which I love.
Yeah.
He did talk about, while writing this book and reliving all of that, he ended up having to go back to rehab for a bit, and how he says, but again, these issues don't just go away. I expect that they will return, but each time they do, I know I'll be stronger than I was before.
You better not fumble Joni again. I promise you that, sir.
Yeah, and that's how the book ends, really.
Okay.
And then there's an afterword.
Okay.
Which is Joni's story.
Okay.
Like Joni's perspective of all of these events.
Oh, shoot.
And she basically just says, like, we've both learned that you're only as sick as your secrets, so we said, let's give them the whole story.
Shoot, that's such an insane line.
And then the last
You're only as sick as your secrets, so we said we'll give them the whole story.
Queenship.
Wow.
Let me find the last two lines, because it was very sweet. And she stood by him through so much.
Yeah, she really did.
But she says, she ends it with, I once lived with the feeling that the bottom would fall out at any moment, but not anymore. Today I have the Clint I know and fell in love with all day, every day. We made it. It's just very sweet.
We made it.
Yeah.
God, I want the world for them.
Me too. They seem very happy. I actually watched an interview of her. She looks just like what I thought she would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to look her up later.
And that's the book. It's a lot. This was 2 hours long. I think I might split this up into a part 1 and a part 2 and do like a double drop.
Okay. All right. Well, thank y'all for sticking with us. It was certainly a roller coaster.
Yeah.
I hope y'all had fun, because I know I sure didn't.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
It needed to be. I think that's such an important book to have covered.
His story is just crazy. And honestly, I love how outspoken he is about the mental illness of it all. I think there needs to be more of it. Him, Patrick Laine. There's some other NHL players, but yeah it's big.
They're building the foundation that desperately needs to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's not weakness, you guys.
It's not.
It's not weakness. We're all human.
Yeah.
And we're only meant to endure so much before it takes a psychological toll on us.
True.
So,
yeah.
Seek help.
Seek help. Actually, I feel like I should put a link somewhere below.
Yeah.
Because yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for staying through this
If you made it all the way through.
Thanks for coming to book club. Sorry we started out with a bummer. Well, maybe next time we'll do a happy.
If you made it the whole way through, comment Marlo for our emotional support pet. He's really supportive, as you can tell.
He takes after his mother. He's very hands-off.
Yeah.
His love language is not physical touch.
No. It's naps and food and leaving him alone.
Cover your bottom. We had someone comment about that last time.
Cat butt. That was so funny.
I know. I was like, sorry. He doesn't know that his butthole is out to the world.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else we need to say?
Stay safe out there.
Stay safe out there. Stay woke out there.
Yeah.
Use your resources.
Yeah.
We love you.
Yeah.
Don't do anything drastic. Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye now.